Good day, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unleash with FTM, Unleash with From the Expert's Mouth. And today we have a triple bonanza for you with Paramdeep Singh, the president and the founder of ShortHills Technology. So, Paramdeep, what we're going to be talking about today is really about three things. Firstly, your entrepreneurship journey and how you got into it. Secondly, the subject matter of your entrepreneurship, at least your first stint, which is education and skills. And thirdly, the exciting space that you are in these days, which is the space of generative AI. When we look at the world of content today, particularly with generative AI coming in, which of course the world knows by the name of ChatGPT, but it is much more than that. How
Correct.
do you see the world of content evolving?
So I think this space is going to go through a lot of changes. It has gone through a lot of changes. It will go through a lot of changes.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, it is going to be very competitive. So I think knowledge will be easy to get, and I think attention will be very difficult to get. So for
Right.
example, getting people to listen to you is going to be very difficult.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that intrigues me about the this space, apart from all the upsides and the competitive intensity, is the impact in terms of these models hallucinating, as if the problem of deep fakes, misinformation, fake news was not bad enough. Now we have these generative AI models churning out content because of the fact that it is very coherent and it is very neatly structured, and it is coming from credible sources. People just tend to take it as gospel truth, and
Yeah.
it is even worse than or more dangerous than fake news, because you don't even know whether out of the 10 pieces of content that you are digesting, 8 of them are true and 2 of them just maybe hallucinating and creating facts out of thin air. So how do we deal with that problem, and how is that space going to shape up? Because as I understand, you are a geek, and you've done your maths and computing from IIT Delhi and have been in this space for so long. So who better to throw light in technical aspects so that even a 12-year-old can understand, at least 12-year-old in terms of technology evolution, because we have a wide spread of listeners and
Sure.
users on our show.
Sure. I think it's a short term problem. So short term, obviously, it's a huge problem because people believe what they see on the Chat GPT window, and sort of, I think this place is going to be very very dangerous, especially in the medicine field where a lot of homemade doctors are going to come. So you can just ask Chat GPT and it will sort of throw out all the medicines and the analysis to you. Even with Google, it was a problem that was profound enough. So interestingly, my wife is a doctor, and the first thing she recommends is that if you are ill, do not go to Google. So and Google will still show you articles that are technical, right? So
Right.
and you need to interpret, which is difficult to do. Whereas a Chat GPT just throws out a sort of a 12-year-old definition of what that problem is. Uh, I think it's a matter of time. People will start putting in those guardrails. That means sort
Mhm.
of for you to go and take medicines. At least the bigger brands will try to stay away from that and make sure that sort of you're not in that direction. Already, if you look at ChatGPT and you ask questions around medicine, it will say that I'm not a doctor and I'm not there to advise
Right.
you on either the illness or the medicine. And there will be people sort of who will be unethical and still let you go down that train. But I agree, sort of that is an issue, and will have to be handled. So there are a lot of sort of there is a lot of noise in the industry on what these generative models should be allowed to do, what they
Mhm.
should not be allowed to do. But
Right.
I definitely feel that sort of putting those guardrails is a minimum.
Right.
So and programmatically, obviously, there are tools that are coming up that make it easy to, not easy, but that make it possible to sort of put those guardrails in place. So for example, if you are a geek and you're looking for such a tool, LangChain is one such sort of
Right.
platform that's enabling people who use the generative technology to
Yeah,
disallow you
absolutely.
to use
I'm hooked on to LangChain. It's awesome.
it. So that
Yeah.
sort of that sort of allows you to put some guardrails in picture.
Yeah.
right? So and the big ones obviously are going to put those guardrails anyways. I assume that sort of Azure would bring that, Google will bring that.
Right.
It's only sort of the open models that will allow you to sort of figure out space around that. But yes, I would say that sort of it's an evolving field right now. It's open. Eventually there will be some parts that will sort of get closed down, and I think
Right.
for good and for bad. So for good, because it will not allow you to take medicines on your own. For bad, because it still is a democratic world. Whoever wants to do whatever should be able to do that. But yeah, I would say it will evolve over a period of time. These policies will evolve. That's what
Right.
my gut feel
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and speaking of evolution, there are a lot of voices in the industry globally now which are calling for a moratorium on the development of AI. Is that even possible, and is that just wishful thinking, or what is really behind all this?
I think that's not going to be possible. My take on that is that that's not going to be possible, because there are a lot of counter voices, and I would agree with them. Let's say if Azure was to stop for 6 months from any new development, one, anyways, that just gets shifted by 6 months, right? Two, whoever are the so-called, let's say, the bad elements, they would get another 6 months head start, right? So they would
Mhm.
anyways reach where Azure is right now. Azure has the lead. At least there can be sort of corporate governance that can be forced upon Azure for an open source model, that's still more difficult. So that means the community will have to come and then put in those guardrails,
Mhm.
and that. So I don't think that's going to work out. So it will
Right.
have to be the community that sort of disallows and then sort of flags out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got to be practical, and it is here to stay. I think
It is it.
what we've learned over the a study of history, whether you study history using ChatGPT or otherwise, the study of history has showed us that these disruptive innovations, they don't reverse, and there's no mean reversion happening there. Uh, the world has changed irrevocably, and we've got to live with it.
Correct. That's right. And it's just going to evolve further. So Chat GPT, I feel, is just the beginning.
Right.
So it's the auto GPTs that are going to be the more dangerous part of it. But
Mhm.
I don't think no anybody can stop it now.
Right.
So so now
Yeah.
that sort of they say that sort of शेर के मुंह पे खून लग गया है, now it's going to be difficult
Right.
to stop people from using it. It's just going to be
Yeah,
there.
and just for context, for people who do not understand what auto GPT is and what are the dangers, do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, sure. So see, so ChatGPT is just a generative model, right? It just starts understanding English. So, so let's say yesterday, if you were programming, and all these things I think are old. It's just that sort of they have become more democratic now. It's easier for people like you and me who have been away from coding to start using it. I think the programming world was already there. So you could just write in C, you could write in Python, you could write code. So let's say if you wanted to automate something, you wanted to let's say create a new blog that gets traffic. So what would you do? You would first go and search on the internet on how to create a blog. So people will say that you should use, let's say, a WordPress to create blog. You should search for keywords that people are searching on, then write good content on it. Once you write, you publish, you put that on Google, you sort of optimize it for SEO. People will come, and then you can monetize it. So and and this was all possible if you could write code. It's just that sort of for people to write code was a bit difficult. So the entry barrier was high, so people would have to understand how to write code, how to write syntax, and so on. It was all possible. People were all doing it. It's just that sort of this democratization has happened because now you can write in English, right? So I can give a chat GPT an instruction to research for how to write a blog in English, and it would do that for me and then show. I can potentially ask chat GPT or an equivalent model to create a blog for me, and I don't need to learn WordPress. It will automatically sort of spawn that blog for me. So I want a new text box. I can just say, please create a text box for me. It will write HTML code that can write text box for you. Then I can say that write content for me. So I don't
Right.
have to do the grunt work of thinking and then writing. It will write a
Right.
blog for me, and then I can publish that blog. And and that's chat GPT if you want to do it step by step. The other extreme is there is an auto GPT that also understands English, right? So it internally, if you ask an auto GPT to make you money, it will search on internet and say that okay, writing blog is one way to make money.
Right.
So it just make money translates to writing blog, then writing blog translates to creating a website, searching for keywords, writing that content, and then sort of publishing it. So a chat GPT just sort of automates that process. So it's or sort of an auto GPT is a sort of automating the chat GPT. So the next action it can decide on itself, and it starts taking that action. So
Right.
interestingly, a lot of this content is open source. You can just search for auto GPT, and
Right.
you will find that information very handy.
Right. Yeah. So, in layman terms, essentially what AutoGPT is doing is automatically creating a to-do list. And
Correct.
then there are programs which are executing each of the elements in the to-do list. And
Correct.
I think AutoGPT is also intelligent enough to dynamically figure out in the to-do list which elements should be added, which should be prioritized, and all of that fancy stuff.
Correct.
So
Correct.
sounds surreal, but all of these things are happening, and this technology is available and available in open source
Yeah.
for anybody who wants to get their hands dirty to play around with it.
Sure.
Yeah,
And if you look at the videos, or even if you want to try your hand at it, it's like mind-boggling what it can do.
right. Yeah. And which brings us to, the question which kind of connects your first venture to, the space that we are in, which is related to skills and education and the world and the future that we are heading into. So, from a skill perspective, because you've been in the education and training business for almost a decade, how do you see the skill space evolving as far as humans are concerned? You've spoken a lot about what technology can do, but the big
Correct.
question I think we all need to ask ourselves is, as humans, what do we do? How do we face this onslaught? And where do we stand in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so I would still say that sort of see each of these disruptions, although there have always been fears that these disruptions will sort of eat away a lot of jobs. So, for example, I don't know when the airline industry came, maybe it'll eat away all the jobs that the shipping industry had, but that never happened. It's just that sort of the opportunity is just increased with the airline industry coming in. So my take is that similar thing will happen over here as well. So maybe the old skill will no longer be required. So let's say, I don't know, so copy editing, maybe that skill, the overall demand will go down. So it's
Right,
just that high quality editors will still be required, but if you look at the output that ChatGPT generates,
right,
it's not very useful. It's interesting but not very useful. So so those skills might come down a little bit. So let's say people who were automating your homework, right, who were writing your homework, maybe that job will be gone away. So I was seeing sort of that in the US there was this company that did people's homework, and that the share price suddenly dropped to half the share price within a single day. So
right.
yeah, so I'm sure sort of those skills will keep changing. So
Yeah,
but
I
if you
think
keep
Pearson's parent company check dropped by some 48% in one day
correct,
earlier this
yeah, yeah,
week. So,
yes, correct,
yeah.
yeah.
And
So
there wasn't any tangible risk or any threat or any other product which came in. It's just that they
correct,
said, this is going to impact us. The world realized, and, boom, the share price just fell like
correct,
a falling
yes.
knife.
Yeah, so I would say that sort of maybe the old skills will keep changing, but new skills, especially technology, I
Mhm.
and I think most of the thinking skills are there to stay. So
Right,
even if you were to use a chat GPT or an auto GPT, but what to get done from it, that skill is not going to go away. And I
right,
still feel that sort of it can write toy programs, but if you're looking at a large enterprise system, those skills are there to stay. So I would say if you acquire skills around technology, uh, analysis, analytics, those skills are never going to go away. So
right,
is that sort of you need to fight harder to be productive. So just writing a hello world will not help.
right.
But that's the starting point, and everyone has to start somewhere. So I would say that if you keep acquiring those skills around technology, analytics, problem solving, they are not going to go away.
Right. Right. So, from a skills perspective, a lot is being spoken about the human and machine interface. And if you look at it, it has always been there. So, for example, in the financial analysis world, when Excel came in as a tool, people, instead of calculating things using their minds and brains, were using technology. And it's not that Excel made their financial analysis skills or analysis skills redundant. In fact, it only sharpened it. So,
Correct.
from a human and machine interface or cooperation, how is it that we need to think differently in this new generative AI sort of world? Because the kind of things that the machines are able to do now has increased exponentially beyond what we would have otherwise imagined.
Sure. See, and you are bang on target. I think one of the key things that will happen is that it will again sort of democratize that world. So initially, so for example, when we were training people, sort of Excel training was one of the key aspects of a training. And
Mhm.
if you look at it, a lot of time was spent on just understanding how to put in formulas, how to put sort of link to cells, and so on. So in terms of a thought, it is sometimes easier to get to that thought and sometimes difficult to sort of jump that hoop of understanding syntax. So when I was in college, so we all the only languages that we had was like Pascal, C++, right? And they were relatively very difficult to learn.
Right,
So and then came Java, where you did not have to worry about memory and pointers. That was far easier to learn. And now there's Python, which is like if you know the old languages, the learning curve is literally like 1 day and you can, or 2 days, and you can start doing something in it. The interesting part is that sort of now even English can do that for you.
right,
So for you to analyze, you don't need to learn Excel or Python. You
right,
can have your ideas in English, write those ideas, and hopefully the machine will get it done for you. So I think it's
right.
just the human computer interface is changing, and you don't need to learn the syntax. You just need to worry about what you're looking for, the problem that you're looking to solve, and hopefully it will translate this into what the machine is going to understand. So I
Right.
think that's the key difference that's going to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was talking about the human and machine interface. I was reading somewhere earlier this week that they've developed a prototype which essentially can read your thoughts and can translate it into text. So, and it's not even something which is invasive. They just put a contraption on top of you, and whatever you are thinking, it, translates into text. And think of it technologically, it's not such a big deal because ultimately it's a machine learning model. It has taken some samples, learned it on the sample data set, and it has just extrapolated it. But
Okay.
that's the kind of possibilities that we are generating for the world right now.
Yeah.
So
I think people have been toying with this idea of let's say using brain waves to help understand what people people want to do. I don't know. That looks scarier than even these generative models. So that means
right,
it will be able to figure out what you want to do and then go and figure that out how to do that and then do it
right.
for you. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I
That
think
scary.
this model that I'm talking about, which I read of, this is not in the general the brain computer interface. It was trying to address a very specific and pointed problem within the overall realm of thoughts that we have. Because solving for everything that we think about is like artificial general intelligence. It's not going to happen so quickly. So I think they were
True, sure,
wise enough to narrow the problem down, and they trained
sure,
their data set on only a particular set of thoughts, and that is why they were able to get some success in terms of translating it into text. But yeah, that's an example of the kind of things that we are heading into. But yeah, since we're talking about thoughts, I think the basic point is that the innate abilities of human beings to think, to be creative, to be analytical, to be creative, and of course the social aspects of humanity, those are going to become even more important
correct,
as technology takes over. And
correct.
even though we keep hearing about doomsday predictions, etc., world is not going to come to an end, and we'll always figure a way out. I think we are
Oh, sure.
ingenious enough as a race.
Sure, I completely agree with you. So I would say that sort of this is more like when the auto sector came, people thought that sort of the horse world, as in what would happen to people who were sort of using the horses. I think they just figured out something. So I think the human race is resilient enough to figure out what to do next. So this
Right,
is just one of those hypes around what would happen. I would say people will figure out and they will be in a better place.
right. Yeah, absolutely. I think as with any technological evolution, there is the good side and there is a flip side, and over a period of time, we kind of figure out how to
Correct.
balance the two.
I
And I don't think we ever achieve the perfect balance. Even today we have gun control being debated in the US. So
sure.
you know, what more can be said? I mean,
Sure.
why are we even talking about autonomous weapons aided by AI when we are
Correct.
deliberately allowing people to hold brandish guns and shoot people in broad daylight?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so you know, we spoke about your maiden entrepreneurial venture in the field of skills and training, and then we spoke about the generative AI space. But tell me, what brought you into shifting from that earlier venture of education, skills, and training into this exciting space of technology development and generative AI?
Sure. So see, I run that business for 10 years. So 2008 till 18, we run that business. So we had raised sort of funds from a VC called Axel Partners, and obviously, see, any time a VC comes in, they do want to get returns. So one of the sort of concerns was obviously to make sure that the sort of investors do get the return. The other is sort of we found that sort of the technology space was evolving very fast, and it was sort of very very exciting to get into. And I had been in technology after college, after my engineering college for a while, and I definitely wanted to get back to it. So that's where sort of we thought that it would make sense to start something in technology. So one of the reasons to exit that business was to get returns for our shareholders. Two, obviously we had run it for 10 years.
Mhm.
We and as a person, sort of when I had been working in jobs, I think the maximum I worked was for 2 years. So 10 years was a relatively long time for me.
Right.
So so and then sort of technology was something that was very dear to me. I thought that this was a space that was going to be there for long term. That means if I sort of build something in it that could sustain for a while. Two, it's so quickly evolving. The sort of today you
Mhm.
learn one thing, tomorrow it's like running a new business altogether. So that those were the reasons. So this is very exciting field. There is so much happening in the space, and when I meet someone, I definitely advise them to be in technology. Even if they have done an MBA, they should not do an MBA, but but they should be in technology. But even if you do an MBA, still be in technology. Work for a startup, or even a Microsoft or a Google or a Facebook, rather than an investment bank or even a
Right.
consulting firm where I worked. So I would say that sort of this space is evolving very fast. There's a lot of opportunity,
Mhm.
and that's where sort of we thought that sort of one of my partners and I, in my previous organization, we thought sort of we would start this company and then be in technology.
Right. Yeah. So your love for technology kind of came
Correct.
back into the fore.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And I can't help but let that pass. The comment you made about one, they should not be doing an MBA, right? So, yeah, just for context, Paramdeep is an IIT IIM graduate, the dream combination that everybody speaks about, at least from an Indian perspective. So,
I Yeah, I don't have anything against an MBA. It's just that sort
yeah,
of
but yeah, I mean, just to put context here about the spirit in which we are discussing this. This show is
correct.
really about sharing experiences from the journey of everybody, all our guests. So it's not a diktat or a golden rule which applies to everybody universally. It's certainly not. I am also a product of the IIM, so I dare not say anything against the IIMs. They are wonderful institutions, but it is about your journey and what a particular event or set of events adds to your journey. So from your perspective, what
Sure.
I gather, and I may be paraphrasing, so it's better to ask you to put it in your words, but what I get from it is that you were a techie and you found that, okay, I should have been in tech for longer, and maybe MBA took me more to the management and general management side, which if I would have spent in tech, maybe I could have done these things much faster. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing. So,
I, I completely agree. So I just put another sort of example. So today, if you again, it's not easy to find CEOs also, but CEO or good product officers, but it is very very difficult to find good CTOs. So that means if you are in technology, sort of you build your career in technology. I think in a shorter span of time, you can build a much more exciting career.
Right.
So these days, whoever I meet, I tell them that they should look seriously at a technology career. So a few years back, when I was out of college, it looked like sort of this wave could go down. The sort of demand for technology skills could go down. It has never gone down, but I think now it's just going to go up. So that's what my feeling is.
Right.
And again, sort of, if we just look at the flip side, given that some part of the programming could be done just by chat gpt or one of these generative models, maybe it's the ideas or the business that starts getting more importance. So
Right.
maybe now the time for mbs is going to come. That means that whoever has the right idea don't need to learn syntax or programming. I
Right.
don't know. It's wishful thinking. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But but yeah. So I still feel that sort of the technology skills uh, in the medium to long run are going to be far more important going forward.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine, and I think irrespective of whatever you are doing, whichever background you're coming from, I think the key question that one needs to ask themselves is, from a career standpoint, what is it that you are interested in? What is it that you believe is your core strength, and play to those strengths. So if you've
Correct.
spent years in a graduation or acquiring skills and degrees which you are not interested in, then maybe MBA is a good control Z or undoing of your past. But if you love what you're doing and there is demand for it and you enjoy doing it, then there is absolutely no need for that peer pressure just because society believes
Oh,
that IIT plus IIM is really the dream
oh, sure.
combination, or whatever it may be.
Sure, and
Yeah.
I think even with these, even in terms of the education, I think so for example, within our organization, we have a lot of BCAs who are doing very very well in technology.
Mhm.
So I would say that sort of eventually it's the skill that becomes very important, and technology is one place where sort of you can learn these skills at any point of time.
Right.
So I have a lot of accounting friends who have done very well in technology, who understand technology very well, can write code, very high
Right.
quality code they can write.
Yeah.
And so that's one place where I feel sort of acquiring those skills, if you work hard on those skills at any point in your career, they are completely possible. You can acquire those skills and do well in your life.
Right. Yeah, I think two forces that are particularly shaping the world right now. One is, of course, the democratization of technology, which makes it accessible to everybody ubiquitously. And I think the second thing, more on the education side, is the focus because of the NEP on these multidisciplinary education and learning. And
Correct.
I think that will add a lot of value to the to the youth and even to adults who engage in this sort of multidisciplinary learning on as adult learning or on a lifelong basis, because the kind of things that you can create, the kind of innovations that come out of bringing two disciplines together, can never be achieved by people who are working or have exposure only to one silo. So I think that's another one area. I mean, you've given the example of a accounting friend who's become good at coding, and the kind of products
Yeah.
that they will be able to create with a knowledge of accounting plus technology
Oh,
cannot be
yeah.
created by any one of these individually.
Correct. Correct. So
Yeah.
the domain knowledge obviously plays a lot of role in terms of the quality of product or the features that you build within that product. So I think this space where sort of, if you understand technology, you sort of marry that with the domain expertise. That's going to be very very important.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think whatever happens, we don't know and we can't predict. But one thing we know for sure is that the space is going to be dynamic and learning is going to be lifelong. I think the era of
Okay.
learning only at a particular age or stage of your life is gone. We've left that way
Correct.
behind us, and
Correct.
the pace at which things are changing, you've got to keep learning all the time. And what better way to learn and know about what to learn than by learning from the experiences of people, particularly those that come on our show and are kind enough to share their experience, wisdom, and journey with us and with our audience. So, if you like that thought, make sure that you like this video, you put your comments about what your takeaways are from this, and do subscribe to the channel because we keep sharing videos every week and shorts on every day of the week. More episodes will be coming up in Unleash with FTM, and you can see the other previous episodes in the playlist that we have. We'll put the links in the description as well as the comments. Paramdeep, thank you so much for
Sure.
sharing your thoughts and sharing your experiences on our show, Unleash with FTEM.
The pleasure was all mine.
Great. With that, we'll see you in the next episode.